Well, hello and greetings to episode number 65. Yep, 65 of Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Standard Time, 7 p.m. British Time, and 8 p.m. European Time. Every week, every Tuesday at 2, I come on live on a variety of different social media platforms talking about career management. The topic is always different each week. This week is a very interesting topic that I know is going to appeal to a lot of people. What role does an executive recruiter have in your career? I'll repeat. What role does an executive recruiter have in your career? Now, this is a two-way street, so please ask some questions. I will, as two unfolds, I'm more than happy to answer those questions. Doesn't have to be necessarily on executive recruiters. It can be anything to do with your career. What's on your mind? Are you having difficulty with your job search? What about your resume, your CV, your personal brand? Keep those questions coming. I'm more than happy to answer them as this Tuesdays at 2 goes through. So, what role does an executive recruiter have in your career? I'm going to tell you that an executive recruiter can play quite a significant role in your career, without doubt. However, they are a small percentile of the overall, what I call, job search wheel. That's the 100% of jobs that are available. So here in North America, they vary. It's just about 10 to 12% of the overall jobs that are available right this minute. But in Europe, they're a little bit higher. In Asia, they're a little bit higher. So, but they're not big. There's not a big chunk. But I want to emphasize the thread of this Tuesdays at 2 is you need to embrace executive recruiters in your overall career management. Now, I've talked a lot about career management in previous Tuesdays at 2. It's very, very important. You need to manage your career. You need to look after your career. You look after your finances, and your finances are propelled by your career. So it's a twofold way of managing your life, your career, and your finances. So yeah, they are a huge part. They can play a really crucial role in your overall career management, but they are a small percentile. But you need to be on their radar. Now, there are various ways of getting on their radar. An executive recruiter are busy, busy, busy people. They only have the same number of work hours that you or I do. They don't work crazy hours. They work regular hours and they have a set pattern. They work for their clients, not for you as the candidate. So you become the candidate and they work for their clients. They don't work for you. So you need to get that in your mind. I know it can be very frustrating in dealing with executive recruiters, and I will be bringing some executive recruiters onto my future podcast because I want you to learn more from them themselves on how an executive recruiter works. So anybody got any questions? There's one question just come in. Hang on just 1 second here. Let me see what the question is. George, hi George. When you say executive recruiters, would this include all personnel that sorry. When you say an executive recruiter, would this include all personnel that you speak with who work for any job placement company? Would this include all HR placement individuals you deal with during your search? So there's different types of executive recruiters. I'm talking about, George, the executive recruiters at the top end, the retained executive recruiters, not contingency. What I'll do is I'll schedule in my Tuesdays at 2 the differences between a contingency, so personnel, staffing, which you're probably talking about, and the executive recruiters. So they are on a retained fee. So how do you get on their radar? The best way is through a referral. Somebody a friend of yours, a colleague, acquaintance, somebody in your family may have been placed by them before. And it's a relationship. The whole thing I'm going to talk about today is relationship building. You cannot get better than relationship building and networking. Those things go hand in hand, and you need to embrace relationship management. So a referral from somebody who's been placed before. Then you can look them up on LinkedIn, and look them up on the big or all their websites, and find them, because they all specialize in niches. One specializes in supply chain, another one specializes in marketing, another one specializes in finance. There are general ones as well, but you need to build a relationship with an executive recruiter who knows your industry and works your industry inside out, back to front. So you need to go and source them and use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great tool. I always talk about LinkedIn every Tuesday at 2. It's a multifaceted platform that can bring you huge value in networking, in finding your next opportunity. So they're looking for you to be active on LinkedIn. If you are passive on LinkedIn and you have a very basic LinkedIn profile, you probably won't be found. So right now, I'm going to tell you, in the Western world right now, in Europe, where it's 8 o'clock, maybe they're still working, 7 o'clock in the UK, and definitely here in North America, there are executive recruiters looking right now for talent. You need to get on their radar. They build a talent pool. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a couple of minutes. So that you need to get on their radar. Very, very important. So they're looking for you. If you have a basic LinkedIn profile, or you're not active on LinkedIn, you don't have a picture, professional picture, you haven't customized your LinkedIn address, the chances that you're going to be found by somebody who could make your career are diminished quite substantially. So use LinkedIn and fill LinkedIn out. I've talked a lot about LinkedIn. If you want to go and find a lot more videos on LinkedIn, please go to my YouTube channel and please subscribe, because there are some more LinkedIn videos coming down the pipeline, and press the bell button where you will be notified of future videos. So that is a wealth of information for you. And each week, this Tuesdays at 2 automatically gets relayed to my YouTube channel. So if you've missed it, you can have a look at it again. So executive recruiters, retained executive recruiters, you need to embrace them and build them into your overall career management plan. Now, I get this question a lot, and I talked about it on Tuesdays at 2 and in my YouTube videos. Why doesn't an executive recruiter return my call? As I said just a few minutes ago, they don't work for you. They work for the client at the other end. So they're paid by the client at the other end. If an executive recruiter, in quotes, asks you for money to be placed, run not just 1 mile, but 10 miles. They are unscrupulous. An executive recruiter will never ask for payment. So just run. Say no, thank you, and run like heck. So they are employed by their clients. They have projects, and every day an executive recruiter, on average, gets unsolicited between 30 and 50 emails with resumes or CVs attached each weekday. Put yourself in behind their desk and think about their day, their time management. If they gave every one of those 30 or 50 5 minutes of their time, that's their whole day consumed. So I would suggest you get in through a referral. In the big six, the global companies and the smaller, the domestic companies, they have researchers. And researchers normally work for 2 or 3 executive recruiters. So get in the back door, call the receptionist of that recruiting firm, executive recruiting firm, and ask, who is the executive recruiter who specializes in finance? Who is the executive recruiter who specializes in marketing? May I have their researcher? So you've got the name. Look them up on LinkedIn and start building a relationship. They like the back door, just build a relationship with the researcher rather than the executive recruiter. You need to be on their database. So how do they work? Well, they don't expect them to find you a job. They don't find jobs. They have projects. They don't do, or very rarely do they do coaching. Very rarely do they write resumes or CVs. That's not in their mandate. They are there to search for talent, hunt that talent using all the different mediums that are available to them. So I'm going to talk about how they work. And then hopefully when I do my podcasts, you will be executive recruiters live talking about how they go on the hunt. So how do they work? They get a job from their clients. So say it's a vice president of business development for a CPG company, vice president of business development for a CPG company. So what do? They go to their own database first. They look at all the resumes, all the CVs in their database. And if you don't have an ATS friendly resume or a CV, you're gone. They will never find you. They look in their own database. Then they go to LinkedIn and they type in various buzzwords. This is where you need to have your LinkedIn profile fully complete. They go and hunt for talent. So they're now starting to expand their talent pool. They may be up to 15, they may be up to 20. And then what they do, they call the competitors of that client, and the equivalent or maybe the next level down, the director of business development, and they say, oh, hi, Joe, I've got this excellent opportunity for a vice president business development. Often it's a confidential. They probably won't tell you the name of the company, especially if there's somebody in that seat already. And that happens a lot because they don't want that person in that seat to know that they're finding a replacement. So they call the competitors the equivalent level, equivalent rank, and then maybe the next level down. And now they've got a big talent pool. This is where the researchers, if it's a big firm, domestic big firm, come into play. They get together. They discuss each candidate. They go through the benefits and the pitfalls of calling that client and then that candidate, and then they narrow it down. And each recruiter is different. They may call initially 30. They may call 20. And then they narrow it down based on the interviews or the conversations they've had with those people. Now the questions come in, so let me answer that first. Great. William. Good afternoon, Martin. What characteristics or skills do executive recruiters look for when seeking candidates? Well, so their mandate from their client is very specific. There's a multitude of check marks that they have to fulfill. Now, often today, because we're on a talent shortage, they can't find all those, say, 10 or 12 check marks. And sometimes they're willing to forgive one or two as long as that person shows during the conversation, the interview stage, that they have, that they can fit into the culture. They may be just a minor thing that they haven't got. If you haven't got something, you can say, well, I'm a fast learner, or I intend on taking a course on quality control or ISO or whatever. So yeah, that's what they do. They look for talent and then they narrow it down. And so they narrow it down to various to 15, and then perhaps they go into an in-depth interview with about 15, maybe 12, and then they narrow it down even further, and they have to maybe 9 or 10, and they really go into it hard. And an executive recruiter, those projects can last up to 4 months. They don't happen just like that. They can be very, very long. However, there is a function now that's becoming very, very hot called interim management. And that can be overnight. It's totally, totally different. You have to be prepared to work tomorrow morning or Monday morning or whatever. So interim management is very, very hot right now. So you need to get into their radar, and then you need to have a conversation with them, and then they narrow it down, and they may be down to about 8, and then they really had to do a lot of brainstorming, and depending on what the client is asking for, they may send 7, they may send 6, they may send 5, they may send 4, or even 3 candidates with a wealth of notes that they've accrued over the last 2 or 3 or 4 months on that person, for them, the client, to make the decision. And that executive recruiter is always on call to their client to provide advice on those candidates. So this is where it can be very, very long. So that's how they work. They get a big talent pool, and then they narrow it down and narrow it down, and then send a very narrow chunk of about maybe 7 to 3 to the clients, and then the clients then do the interviews themselves. Sometimes the executive recruiter goes to the interview at the clients, whether it be in person or whether it be virtual. So the message I want to relay today is get on their radar, and don't just get on their radar when you're in career transition. Yeah, that's great, but you need to stay on their radar. Don't just, oh, I've got my job now, I'm fine, and forget about them, wave them goodbye, and then 5 years, 4 years down the road, expect them to pick up the pieces. It doesn't work that way. Relationship building never works that way. Keep up that relationship. So I would suggest every 4 to 5, maybe 6 months, is send that executive recruiter you have built a relationship with an email, and put one of your success stories in there. So you keep on their mind, on their radar, and then when they come to look for talent again, you are always, always on there. So never turn a request for a conversation with an executive recruiter down. You might not want the job, but you might be able to recommend somebody. You have a huge network. Every viewer has a huge network. There's another question coming. Great, this is really good. So let me have a look at this one. From Raya. Hi, Martin. Question about skills or check marks. How can I ensure I'm representing my skills accurately? For example, everyone seems to be an Excel expert, but many can't use add-ons and pivot tables. I don't want to lie on my CV, but I also don't want to understate my expertise. I'm using Excel as an example. So there's various, it's your own perception on how good you are in using those software. Now, I take it, I don't know you, but I take it you are in something to do with analysis or finance, because that's where Excel is used extensively. So there's various levels, an expert, advanced. If you think you're an expert, you put expert down there. But if you are an expert, you've got to be prepared for them to test you out. If you got advanced, that's not quite an expert, but they will still probably test you. Unfortunately, people tend to embellish. And then when they come to maybe doing an Excel, a Microsoft Excel test, they don't know it all. And they put it on their resume that they're an expert. Well, that's not good. So if you feel comfortable, Raya, on putting an expert in MS Excel on your resume, I would do it. Now, for a lot of jobs, MS Excel, Microsoft Word, Access, and other really isn't of value as it was 20 years ago. Very rarely do I put MS Excel. I put the other finance or accounting software on there. And if I have room on a resume, I always put MS Excel, but it's not that as crucial unless they are asking for the MS Excel. Now, coming to resumes, you always customize that resume to that particular job. Don't send a generic one, customize it. So this is where, if they are asking for MS Excel, you need to put, well, how comfortable are you? An expert? Are you mid-level, or are you advanced? You need to put that in into your resume. But be prepared for them to ask you. So, and to maybe test you. So, do you have executive recruiters in your network? May I suggest, as an executive career management practitioner, specializing at the very senior executives, you need to have executive recruiters that can work for you, that you are building and retaining those relationships. Anybody got any other questions? I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Hopefully I've answered Bill's and I've answered Raya's okay. If I haven't, then please feel free to pipe up again. But do you have executive recruiters in your network? Now, people often ask me, well, how many executive recruiters should I have? Now, it's not a numbers game. Don't have hundreds, don't have tens. I would suggest you maybe have 10 to 15 recruiters who specialize in your function or what you are unique or you are an expert in. But it's going to take a little while for you to build and, of course, retain those relationships with executive recruiters. Let me see. Oh, there, Raya. Yeah. Oh, I'm pleased that I've been able to help you. Anybody got any other questions on executive recruiters or just general career management? The hiring across the world is very, very robust here. Here in Canada last week, we hit the level of where we were before COVID, and now we are going into a massive skill shortage, and so are many of the other Western world countries. So hiring is very robust, and use executive recruiters as part of your overall career management. Anybody got any other questions? I'm more than happy to answer any question that's on your mind regarding career management. If not, I will be back next Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. But please, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, go to my YouTube channel and press subscribe and the bell button where you will be notified of all future videos. And I'm going to shoot a load more in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Some of them very interesting, some of them to do with executive recruiters and in niches that you will find very beneficial. So please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel and press the bell button. And anybody want a free, no obligation, no sales pitch, resume or CV critique, or a free LinkedIn audit, I will go through it from top to bottom. I'm more than happy to do that. I'm going to put my email in the comments. Somebody's Ricardo, you're a bit ahead of time. Hang on 1 second. So there we go, Martin at aneliteresume.com. If you want a free, no obligation resume critique or a LinkedIn audit, I will facilitate that for you. Let's arrange some times that are mutually convenient, and we will place a call or a Zoom, and I will go through your resume, your CV, and your LinkedIn profile from top to bottom. But I say it as it is because you only get one kick of the can. So answering your question, Ricardo, what is next week's topic? I like people who are really, really keen to want to know what's coming up next week. So the next week is attitude. I feel down and of no use to an employer. So sadly, as a coach, I see so many people who are very frustrated and they are not in a good position. Often because they don't know how to job search, or often they haven't got a right resume or a CV and they're sending out willy-nilly, and that doesn't work. So next week we will talk about that because that's a very, very important topic. I, as a coach, like to instill motivation. I get my clients pumped up, I get them excited. And hopefully, I have got you excited today to start building relationships with executive recruiters. So, thanks for listening. I will see you at Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, whatever time zone that is in your own particular jurisdiction, next week. I'm looking forward to re engaging with you. I will be here for you. If anybody's got any questions, you have my email, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. Have a great week, manage your career, and start building or expanding your relationships with executive recruiters. They can bring you huge value. Hopefully, you've got that message. Have a great week.